From the outside looking in, confidence in the Milwaukee Bucks wasn't exactly high, but after a few key adjustments, their first game back against the Clippers told us a very different story. Suddenly, there's a whole new level of optimism surrounding this squad, as they've unlocked something that if the rest of the NBA doesn't catch on fast, it could spell serious trouble for the league. Let's break it down. Coming out of the All-Star break with a huge win over the Clippers is the perfect way for the Bucks to start this stretch of the season, for a lot of reasons. First off, the Bobby Portis suspension was a shock, and now he's sidelined till the 8th of April. It's not just his impact on the court that makes him such a big loss, as Bobby's one of the few remaining championship players on this team, making him a natural leader who brings the energy and keeps his teammates locked in. After losing that extra boost of energy for the next 25 games, it's going to be a challenge to see how the Bucks will navigate the loss. On top of that, this win was even bigger when you look at just how brutal the Bucks' schedule is down the stretch of the season. They have the toughest remaining schedule in the Eastern Conference and the 6th toughest over the whole league. Milwaukee is basically getting thrown into the fire, but honestly, I think it's exactly what they need. And with the changes they've made to the starting lineup and more, I couldn't be more excited to see how it plays out. In previous videos, I talked about how the Bucks need to tweak their starting lineup because Andre Jackson Jr. alongside of Giannis simply wasn't working offensively. The coaching staff saw it too and made the adjustment. Now with Kyle Kuzma in the mix, he takes over the Andre Jackson Jr. role of being the high energy defensive guy, giving the Bucks a new starting five of Taurean Prince at the 2 with Kuzma, Giannis, Brook Lopez and Damian Lillard, allowing the Bucks to have more size and versatility. And speaking of Kyle Kuzma, he might have just had his best game as a Buck. He finished with 13 points, 7 rebounds and an assist. Not the flashiest numbers, but his impact went well beyond the box score. He knocked down his open looks when he had to, played great defense on Kawhi Leonard, holding him to just 40% shooting, while taking a big time charge and an and one down the stretch of this game. This is exactly what the Bucks were hoping for when they traded for Kuzma. When he's hitting shots, grabbing rebounds, pushing the pace, and locking in defensively, he makes this team look so much more dangerous. But he's not the only new guy who made an impact. We also got our first look at Jericho Sims, and while his stat line of just 2 rebounds doesn't stand out, he looked really promising in his minutes. He appeared to be more mobile than Lopez, and once the Bucks get used to his unreal athleticism, having him roll through the lane and be a threat for an alley-oop is going to add another layer to this Milwaukee offense. But the real story was Kevin Porter Jr., who made his presence felt in a big way. He dropped 13 points in just 15 minutes on 71% shooting against his former team. During the All-Star break, there was some debate about who should be the backup point guard between Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins, but after tonight, that battle might be over. Porter Jr. is on a completely different level offensively, but he's also proven to be a solid defender. He gave the team a huge spark when they needed it, finishing the game with a +8. The Bucks newcomers have added the athleticism and speed, which was exactly what the team was looking for. I talked about it in my previous video that the biggest issue for the Bucks this season was finding the right balance. When they play fast, their offense is elite, but the defense struggles. When they slow it down though, the defense improves, but the offense falls apart. After trading for Damian Lillard, it's clear that the team wants to be offensively driven, so they have to keep playing at a faster pace, sacrificing their good defense. But that's exactly why the deadline moves were made, and so far they've done a great job of helping the Bucks stay solid defensively while being able to pick up the pace. The only thing that really kept this game close was the turnover battle, with the Bucks giving up too many second chance points to the Clippers. But overall, their defense was strong, holding LA to 46% shooting while forcing 14 turnovers. And considering Giannis only played 24 minutes in this one, that is a really impressive win over one of the better teams out in the Western Conference. The reason Giannis only played 24 minutes is that we believe he's on a minutes restriction, though we haven't been given an exact number. He's nursing a calf injury on the same leg that kept him out of playoff action last season, and if you're asking me, this is the team's biggest concern moving forward. But even in limited action in this game, he was still able to be dominant, especially at the start of the 4th quarter when he flipped the switch into MVP mode, taking over every possession. In fact, from the start of the 4th until the 6:27 mark when he was subbed out, Giannis either scored or assisted on all 16 of the Bucks' points. His calf was clearly still bothering him though, as he didn't have that usual explosion to the rim. But it didn't matter. The Clippers had no answer. He put up 10 points and created 2 threes for AJ Green and Dame in that stretch, completely controlling the game. But what's really interesting is how the Bucks changed their fourth quarter rotation. Normally, it's Dame who starts the fourth, with Giannis checking in at around the 7:30 mark, while Lillard will then briefly rest before coming back in to close the game. This time, Giannis played the first 6 minutes of the quarter, and Dame checked in at the 8:44 mark for the rest of the way. When Giannis is out of the minutes restriction, he would obviously then come back in, but because of his minutes restriction, Giannis subbed out at the 6:27 mark and didn't return. But overall, I really like this adjustment because the fourth quarter rotation had been a problem for the Bucks all season long. They had constantly been struggling with blowing leads or letting games slip away at the start of a fourth quarter without Giannis. This new approach makes a whole lot more sense. Having Giannis to set the tone early in the quarter, to then give him a breather, to have both stars on the floor at the end when it really matters, for me was an obvious adjustment. The Bucks have actually been one of the worst clutch teams in the NBA this season, with a negative net rating in those moments. But this lineup adjustment has the potential to completely flip the switch. Coming out of the All-Star break, this team just looks completely different. They've adjusted to a new starting five, revamped their fourth quarter approach, and fully embraced a new philosophy, playing faster while locking in defensively and leaning into their size with this new jumbo lineup. And so far, it's absolutely working. And speaking of that size, Brook Lopez was a name that Bucks fans were quick to saying we should trade him, but I want to make it clear, I was never one of them. First of all, even if I did want to trade Brook, I knew that there was no way the Bucks were ever going to get anything close to the value he brings to this team. But more importantly, when he gets better support from the perimeter defenders, he looks significantly better. Instead of consistently getting stuck in a 2-on-1 situation, the better on-ball defense from the perimeter defenders allowed him time to properly rotate and contest shots. In this game, it was Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, and Kyle Kuzma that did a great job at staying in front of their matchups, buying Lopez that extra second to get into position. The result, 4 blocks and a much stronger defensive presence inside. But Lopez wasn't just making an impact defensively, as he was huge on offense also. He put up 22 points and knocked down 4 of his 7 triples, including a massive one down the stretch. He was absolutely everywhere when the Bucks needed him to be, stepping up in a game where Damian Lillard struggled to shoot, going just 2 of 12 from the floor. Even though Lillard couldn't find his own shot for most of the night, he still showed up when it mattered. Dame time is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen, as he knocked down a clutch 3, set up his teammates with key assists, and attacked the rim to get to the free throw line, where he then went 9 of 10. That's the beauty of having a guy like Dame Lillard, as even on an off night, he's going to find a way to contribute, especially when the game's on the line. This team looks rejuvenated, and even though the Bobby Portis suspension is a massive hit, it's clear that this team still believes they can be great. They've set lofty goals for themselves, and they're locked in on achieving them. I feel like it gets oversaturated with every contender talking about how they want to win a championship, but for the Bucks, it's about breaking that down and focusing on the foundation. The real goal for this team is becoming a top 10 team in both offense and defense. If they can accomplish that feat while improving their execution in the clutch and getting consistent performances from their 2 superstars every given night, there's no reason why the Bucks shouldn't be considered real title contenders once again. But the team that's likely going to be standing in their way would be the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics have a set of plays that they go to down the stretches of games that if the Bucks don't figure out quickly, they're going to be in serious trouble, especially if they meet in a postseason series. And if you want to hear more about that, you can click here to watch that breakdown now.